So if you remember, on my service truck I had a Miller Big Blue 500D. It had a Deutz diesel in it, and it had 500 amps of DC current, and it had 20 kW generator plug on it. And I missed that thing so bad that I went out and I bought another machine here. I bought this machine. It's supposed to have over 500 amps, but it doesn't have a 20 kW generator built into it. But it still has the panel and remote. It instead of having a 45 horsepower Deutz diesel, this has got a 48 horsepower Kubota diesel. But I'm setting it up the same way, and I'll walk you around real quick and show it to you. I took and I put some fenders on it because I don't want it throwing this stuff all over the back of my truck. It's all stainless steel. There's your little 48 horse Kubota. I put some taillights on the back of it. I put some new Miller decals on it. I had to sand the thing down. It had about a 1/4 of an inch of lime all over the thing. It was a mess. But we put some taillights on it, and we put some fenders on it, and we've cleaned it all up. We've been building cables all day. We've been up here building cables for it. This is the way I like to do them. I like to mark my positive and my negative. I just leave them black. But it works really well. The nice thing about these older machines is they have constant current, constant voltage. So constant current, you know, you can DC weld with constant current. You can TIG weld with constant current. But when you get to constant voltage, you would run your MIG on constant voltage. But what I like to do is when you put it on constant voltage, so down here is constant voltage, and then you turn the thing, it'll go between 14 and 40 volts. So then you would take this controller, here's your 14, like if you were jump starting a Caterpillar, you could put it on 28. Always check your leads and make sure that you're putting out the exact current that you want to put out before you hook on your cables. So I'm going to show you my cables here real quick. These are my jumper cables I just built, and you can see I've got a power, and then I take my ground lug and I hook to the end of this. Got some real nice heavy ends on there. So if you want to use it to jump start with, there's not a better jump starter in the world than that. But you got to make sure it's on constant voltage, and you got to check it, especially with the electronics on all this new equipment. If you take and short something out, you might have, 13 computers on one machine, and you fry them all at $3,000 a piece. You sure don't want to do that. So always check your voltage and make sure you're putting out exactly what you're supposed to be putting out before you start jump starting something with it. So the other thing, I built a real heavy duty welding lead, which is really heavy, and believe me, when you hold it in your hand, it's heavy. So I keep that for heavy work. And then I built a light one like this, so that if you're just burning 1/8 inch rods at 200 amps or whatever, you got a nice light one, so it doesn't wear you out at the end of the day when you're trying to, get something done. The nice thing about having a 500 amp machine is if you're going to run an air arc. If you're going to run an air arc like this right here, if you had a smaller machine, you'd burn a 1/4 inch rod, like 250 amp, you'd burn a 1/4 inch rod. These big machines, if you put her up on 500, you can burn a 3/8, you can burn a half. Here's your air switch to turn your air off and on. It's got a rotating head. Really a handy tool if you want to take something apart that's been welded together. It just is really a handy tool. Or if you got a crack in a bucket and it's 2 inches deep, you can get in there and gouge all that out with an air arc, and then go back in there and start welding her back together again. But if you don't have enough amperage machine, you're not going to be able to do that. I started out with an SA 200, and I was burning 1/4 inch air arc rods like this. But these big diesel machines, especially when you get up into the 500 amps or so, they really have a lot of ponies, and they don't care what you put in front of them. They're gonna do it. This next one I was going to show you here, this is an oxygen lance. If you've ever seen a pin or something that got froze up in a bucket, and you want to take and burn a hole through the middle of that pin, so that you can, once you burn a hole through it and it cools off, that pin will shrink, and then you can drive it out. So if you get a pin in a loader frame or something you can't get out, you need to use an oxygen lance, burn a hole all the way through the pin, let it cool off, and it'll come out for you. This particular one, it doesn't take a lot of juice to run it. You can actually run this thing with a 12-volt battery if you want to. I turned my machine way down low. All you got to really have is a spark on the end of that. I put 90 pounds of oxygen on the end of that hose out there, and when you pull this trigger, that 90 pounds of oxygen goes through this hollow tube. You'll see there where it comes out. That 90 pounds of oxygen comes out here. This has got a lot of magnesium and so on in here, so it really burns quick. It really burns hot, and everything it gets burned out comes right back on you. Those bars are not cheap, but if you've got something that you need to burn a hole through the center of it, you know, if you use a carbon rod, you're going to get in there a little ways, but once that carbon gets in there so deep, you're not going to be able to go any farther. This thing will just keep on going. If it's 8 or 10 inches through, it'll keep on going. So really a handy tool to have if you've got a welding machine. I find it to come in pretty handy. Pretty handy. So I'll fire it up here for you and let you listen to her purr. She sounds awful good. This one's got preheat on it. You got to preheat it. I've also got an aluminum spool gun, and I plug my aluminum spool gun into here. I put that switch on remote and crank up your heat whatever you want. I get a 100% bottle of argon on it, and it's a Miller spool gun. It does a really good job. It runs the little 3-pound rolls. It does really a good job for welding aluminum. A stainless steel wire brush is a must. So, and always brush in one direction so that you don't, when you're brushing, you don't keep scratching and pushing dirt back. You always want to brush in one direction. But really a handy thing to have when you can go out and fix aluminum also. But thought I'd just show this to you today, and if you ever think about buying a welder, always make sure you buy one that's big enough. Nothing worse than having a machine that's so small that it won't get the job done what you want to do with it. So this is the spool gun that I run aluminum. 035. It's a Miller Spoolmatic 3. Here's where I hook it up to my machine. My feed and my shielding gas. It really does do a nice job of welding aluminum. I always push it. It really does do a good job. So this one is the Scratch Start TIG torch. Here's your feed, your shielding gas, and plug this into your remote, and this is your throttle. So farther down you step, the hotter it gets. So nice. This one here is my Millermatic S32S. I bought it brand new, and I had them put volt and amp gauges in it. which I don't know why I did that, because when you're welding something, you can't see what you're doing anyhow. So, but I had it I put a gas valve in it. The ground, this is what runs your feeder, so it's got to be grounded to your work. The tip never goes cold. It's always hot, so you can't just leave it laying around. What I do is I stop my wire feed and let the wire burn off. You get ready to start again, you go again. I like to run dual shield wire, and what I do is I put 75-25 bottle with it, and it really does a nice job for repairing buckets and things like that. It's a pretty heavy welder. You can run it 100%. You never have to stop, but it will get so hot that you'll want to stop, let me tell you. But it'll really put her in there, and a lot in a hurry. But it's a good machine. This is your feed, where your feed comes in. And then all you have to do is just ground this one lead, and away you go. But it's a nice machine. So you see how handy it is to have a machine like this and all the different things that you can do with it. And the most important part of all of it is it's portable. Take it down the road, go fix something if you need to. But it's just really a handy tool to have. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and as always, we thank you for watching.